Hello World Wide Web, I'm Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. And with Mad Max 2 out of the way, there should be no reason I have to stop and argue back and forth as to whether or not something is or isn't post-apocalyptic in this series. Except for the fact that we're talking about Mad Max, and evidently there are varying levels of apocalypse. According to my sources, the initial war wasn't World War III. No. The war before Mad Max was a Persian Gulf War. That's what killed the world's supply of oil, thus resulting in Apocalypse 1. And then the events of Mad Max. Then, evidently, things just got shittier and society completely collapses. After Apocalypse 2 comes Mad Max 2. Then guess what happens? World War III. Nukes drop only after Mad Max 2 takes place, resulting in Apocalypse 3, and then Mad Max 3. At this rate, I'm wondering if there was an alien invasion or asteroid impact that only happens after this movie. In any case, this week we're looking at Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome. The first in the series to be partially funded with American money, Beyond Thunderdome is also unique in the series for several other reasons. A prominent role played by Tina Turner, who is not Australian, and of course the fact that it was never supposed to be a Mad Max movie in the first place. There was a movie people were working on where they had this basic plot line worked out, and then they said, a mysterious man comes in from the wasteland, and someone else was like, why not make it Mad Max? And no one at the table thought to say, because it was supposed to end with Mad Max 2. Not that I'm complaining, I loved Mad Max 2, obviously, and I'm happy to see another movie that I can call post-apocalyptic for 20 minutes before finding out yet again that the apocalypse hasn't really happened yet, no matter how much it looks like it did. Point is, it takes place 15 years or so since the events of Mad Max 2, and despite that whole World War III problem, society isn't crumbling anymore. Matter of fact, it's actually starting to bounce back, giving us a look at a new civilization after the destruction of the old. What kind of civilization? One with a Thunderdome! And things beyond it. So, let's take a look at Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome and get into the specifics. Before I get too far, I have to mention the opening credits. Like the last two movies, it's white text on a black background, but there is a distinct difference this time. The soundtrack. So now you're gonna shoot, bullet for fire, don't wanna fight, but sometimes you got to. They got Tina Turner on board for more than just her on-screen presence. And it is a bit jarring next to the comparatively reserved soundtracks of the last two films, but hey, the movie came out in 1985 and embraces the fuck out of that. The vocals disappear, though, once the movie starts proper. We see the wasteland is still a wasteland, with a lone traveler on a lonesome road. But then... the coachman is knocked off his seat by a swift airplane to the head, piloted by Jedediah, played by Bruce Spence, and his son, played by Adam Cockburn. Yes, Cockburn. Anyway, since Jedediah is Bruce Spence, and Bruce Spence was the gyro captain in the last movie, does that mean the gyro captain was Jedediah? Don't think so. It's hard to say for sure, as this takes place years after Mad Max 2, and the same actor plays a character who flies an aircraft and preys on travelers. But there's one big problem when it comes to assuming Bruce is playing the same character in this movie. He just stole that wagon and those camels from Mad Max. You can argue that this happened really fast and he couldn't really make each other out too well, and he didn't know it was Max, but... then you have the problem later when they're face to face with each other and they still don't seem to recognize each other. Luckily enough for Max, though he's out his camels, his wagon, and pretty much all his worldly possessions that aren't strapped to his ass directly, he still just so happened to be within walking distance to a thriving settlement, Bartertown. It's just what it sounds like, a bustling trading post out in the middle of the wasteland where folks buy and sell everything they can, exotic and mundane.
Don't you understand? This is water, you can't live without it! What's a little fallout, huh?
Well, when you make too many Fallout references during a Mad Max review, it can come out a little tacky, especially considering everyone knows that Fallout was heavily influenced by the Mad Max series. Heading to the building where pretty much everyone must visit, the brothel, Max runs into the Collector, played by Frank Thring of Ben-Hur fame. As Max doesn't have any items to trade, his incessant demands for information fall on deaf ears.
I got skills, I can trade them.
Sorry, the brothel's full.
And we'll just have to put my skills to the test right here. By that I mean his skills at combat, skillfully holding the man up while holding the guards off. Thing is, the display of his fighting prowess actually manages to unlock more dialogue options.
Perhaps you've got something to trade after all.
Keep talking.
24 hours of your life. In return, you'll get back what was stolen.
Promising things that he cannot reliably make a return on. He must have been a member of the Australian government. Especially considering while moving from point A to point B, they find Max's camels, but ignore him pointing that out, instead to bring him to the actual governmental figure of Bartertown, Auntie, played by Tina Turner.
But how the world turns. One day cock of the walk, next to feather dust. Play something Tun-Tun, something tragic.
God damn it! Fuck you! You always pick that one! Auntie is interested in the alleged skills Max has, and tests him with an offering of fruit. Which explodes into a well-choreographed action sequence. It's a funny thing, before they send you on a suicide mission, the first thing they do is try to kill you.
Congratulations. You're the first to survive the audition.
You know, that just makes me think that The Voice would play out very differently if they had Tina Turner as a judge on that show. His prize for living long enough to hear what his job is, oh yeah. Well, they tell him that they need him specifically because he's an outsider and that his target must be killed, but his only chance to do so will be in a fair fight with none of his weapons to the death. To explain the plot further, they exposit that beneath the streets of Bartertown lies a massive pig farm where the pigs are grown not for their meat, but for their excrement to fuel the new world.
The lights, the motors, the vehicles, all run by a high-powered gas called methane. Methane comes from pig shit.
Yeah, but not exclusively. Methane comes from a lot of sources and is produced by pretty much every animal on Earth. I mean, yes, methane does come from pig shit, but by saying methane comes from pig shit, you are leaving a lot of shit out. It's in the underworld that his target can be found, though. Blaster, who is written by Master, making Master Blaster. Not to be confused with the totally original owned by Sunsoft title Blaster Master. In any case, Blaster is the big guy, played by Paul Larson, and Master is played by Angelo Rosito. Auntie wants to keep Master around, but they want Max to kill the big daddy-looking motherfucker. In order to learn what he can about his quarry, Max takes a job in the shit mines, where he meets Robert Grubb, playing the enigmatic pig killer.
How long are you in for?
The big one? Life?
For killing a pig?
It does make you wonder what the sentences are for other crimes.
Terrence, why would you call me a pig fucker?
Well, let's see. First of all, you fuck pigs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, who am I kidding? In this world, that probably gets the Employee of the Month. Max seems to think he might be able to find another way to impress the higher-ups, though, as he finds them tinkering around trying to disarm a bomb on one of the cars they brought in.
That's my vehicle.
Disarm!
How much?
No trade! Do!
He was on a camel-drawn wagon earlier, though. I mean, I don't think it had a gas tank or a booby trap on it. I don't know, but his car with the gas tank and the booby trap was blown up in the last movie. After a little more negotiations, it's decided that Max is going to help, and in return, they won't shove his head up his own ass. Though for it being his own car and knowing what he's doing, Max still seems to suck at his job. You'd think the big red light and screeching alarm would mean that he royally fucked up, but... Well, honestly, I don't know whether or not he did. They don't really say, though it doesn't make sense to me that you would design a system with a big flashing red light and screeching alarm when things are perfectly fine. Perhaps it gives us a clue as to Blaster's one weakness, but the clue's not enough to go on, so Max goes for the confirmation. And spends even longer torturing Blaster with a whistle to confirm that high-pitched noises bother Blaster. And, like, nobody holds him on this. It's like they don't even notice. And if that was a dog whistle, maybe that would make sense because no one else could hear it, but I don't know. Maybe the Foley guy's fucked up again. Now that he knows all he needs to in order to kill Blaster, he returns to Auntie and accepts her quest. Just need the details on that now.
Okay, you said a fair fight. What do you mean by that?
As provided by the law.
Thunderdome.
Well, I had a feeling he'd be killing the guy sometime during this movie. Could you get a little more specific? They mean the arena, or Coliseum, whatever words can easily describe this structure. Forget it, it's a Thunderdome now. Thing is, Thunderdome isn't some gladiatorial exhibition, it's more like Monday night rehabilitation, as the way in which legal disputes are settled. To that end, Max forces a confrontation with Master Blaster, declaring their vehicle his. Obviously they disagree, and are ready to kill him, but lo and behold, the law, and Auntie, step in to hear the plight of the people.
Us want justice. We want Thunderdome.
You know the law. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
What if you're gender fluid? Underworld! The pitting of Blaster versus Max comes in short order, with all the fanfare you would expect. Also, some you wouldn't, as they seem to make a habit of explaining the history behind Thunderdome before every match. It's explained that the old civilization was destroyed by war, but conflicts between people need violent, permanent resolution to prevent that. To that end, Thunderdome exists to settle all disputes between individuals, where the survivor is considered to be the one in the right.
2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
Not exactly a foreign concept from a dystopian future of science fiction. No, I mean, people do remember the idea of gentlemen duels, don't they? No need to wait any longer, so they strap the contestants in. Literally. I was not expecting that, but evidently Thunderdome is a fight to the death while suspended with big-ass rubber bands. I'm not sure exactly why, as it doesn't lend itself to displays of acrobatic ability nearly as often as it seems to devolve into an impossible-to-choreograph slap fight. Fortunately, while Max was restricted from bringing in any of his own weapons, Thunderdome has quite a few provided for the combatants, so long as they can reach them. Such as a motherfucking chainsaw! What'd you expect, Max? Gas ain't cheap, you know. At least with the different weapons and the fighters breaking free of their elastic bindings, the combat does remain quite varied over the course of the fight. As we could expect, Max eventually manages to get a hold of his whistle, and blowing it incapacitates Blaster long enough to beat the ever-loving fuck out of him with a sledgehammer. Knocking his protective helmet clear off, he goes in for the kill. But just can't bear to strike him down. 'Cause he's stupid. No, not Blaster, Max. I mean, the man was just about to rip you in half a minute ago. I don't care what condition he has.
This wasn't part of the deal.
Yeah, it was. Challenge Blaster, kill him, get your stuff back. This detail wasn't brought up because it was inconsequential to that. But we're supposed to feel sorry for Blaster now, as Master explains why he's the real victim here, and Auntie can stuff it if she expects him to continue helping her farm methane.
This place finished.
No, little man. We've only just begun.
Well, that's, kind of kicks that whole need to keep this under wraps part in the ass, doesn't it? Her whole plot to keep this deal and her involvement secret make no fucking sense when you consider she drops down into Thunderdome to yell at everyone what she says is law anyway, so fuck it. Besides, they have a new criminal in their midst, Max.
And I say that this man has broken the law. Right or wrong, we had a deal. And the law says, bust the deal, face the wheel.
You better be careful writing your laws to rhyme. You might get some crossed wires one day when someone hears step on a crack, break your mother's back. Point is, by face the wheel, they are referring to the Wheel of Fortune manner to determine a sentence. Considering this could land on a full pardon, it doesn't seem to be the best means to punish criminals, but I digress. Max gets his spin and his fate. Is the Gulag! Or a Gulag. Or just Gulag. I'm not entirely sure because what they fucking do to him has nothing to do with the word Gulag. The word is an acronym for a forced labor camp from Soviet Russia, but Max's fate isn't forced labor or internment in any way, shape, or form. They tie him to a horse, backwards and blinded, and have him driven out into the wasteland to die. Exactly like a Gulag. Yep. Fortunately, Max is a handy-dandy monkey with superhuman stamina, able to drag a waterskin through the desert, tracking him down very quickly and keeping him alive. Max, I know you're thirsty, but when you have a ridiculously limited water supply, it helps if you make sure that the water actually goes into your mouth. Even with a water skin though, Max is pretty much fucked, wandering through the wasteland with no clear objective, hoping to find something to keep him going. Considering it's the desert, that's easier said than done, and he collapses from exhaustion. But hold on a minute, what's this? A mysterious figure has managed to find Max and drags him back to her settlement. This would be Savannah Nix, played by Helen Budday. She's a member of a tribe of children surviving in an isolated oasis and believes Max to be a certain someone.
It's him. I pointed him. It's Captain Walker.
No, that's Mel Gibson. Walker is played by Chuck Norris. As Max is a bit predisposed to offer a rebuttal to this for the moment, instead we get to know the tribe, who call themselves the Waiting Ones, as they nurse him back to health. Of course, once he finally comes to, this goes about as well as you'd expect. I take that back, actually. It goes a bit better than Max screaming, cursing, and shooting kids. It's a more tongue-in-cheek, slapstick kind of situation, where the old man rushes around screaming at the strange children in their elaborate tree houses. Fortunately, things do calm down and they manage to get somewhere in the Q&A section.
Who do you think I am?
Robin Williams, of course. Obviously, explaining where the hell the tribe came from and who in the fuck Captain Walker is requires a fuck ton more exposition, but fortunately the Waiting Ones prepared for that too. Using cave paintings and a television-shaped staff, Savannah gives a PowerPoint presentation about how the old world was destroyed in the apocalypse, and one jet of people escaping the cities crashed here. One of those crashes where a good amount of people lived though, so not as bad as it could have been. The adults got together to search the wasteland for safety or the like, and left the kids at the oasis with the order to wait for one of them to return. After many years, they found Max, so that's close enough. He's Captain Walker, and now he can lead them to the city of the future, which they call Tomorrowland. Hearing this, Max does what he does best, and crushes their spirits.
And there's no Tomorrowland, and I ain't Captain Walker.
Because telling people who devoted their entire lives to this story that everything they know is wrong and there is no hope nor any reason to hope ever always ends so well. He continues to disappoint them, not explaining why the crash jet just can't fly anymore, but just walking away when they beg him to take them to Tomorrowland. This means that their happy, peaceful tribe can start breaking down as Savannah believes Tomorrowland must be out there and will go forth alone to find it if she has to. Thus, Max must use his expert knowledge in diplomacy to convince her not to. A solid argument, to be sure. Problem is, he can't punch everyone in the face at all hours of the day, so eventually a few slip through the cracks and rush out into the hellish wasteland. Gotta hand it to Max, though, he is trying to be a decent guy here and heads out to rescue them. He manages to find them in time. Well, mostly. The sand did kinda sorta swallow one of the kids. Might regret hitting that snooze button now. Ah well, now that they're together, he can try to lead them to safety. Or danger. Danger sounds more fun.
Is it Tomorrowland?
No. Town. It's our only chance.
Our only chance for a great deal! Buy 2 camels and get all the pig shit you can carry. Rather, Max believes he can sneak in and steal a vehicle for them to escape in. He intends to do this by infiltrating Underworld. But of course, keeping track of a dozen kids in a precarious situation isn't exactly a feasible task. While there, though, it's possible they might rescue Master from his predicament and royally fuck over Buttertown's future prospects in the process. All of this is easier said than done, but by the end of it they managed to steal a train. Yeah, there was a train in the Underworld. Yeah, that's still attached to train tracks, and no, it wasn't used for trade or transport or anything like that. It was a load-bearing train. Now, fuck it. The point is, this finally gives us an excuse to have a vehicular action scene. One we can see, too, as the sun came up right when they escaped. Convenient, that. One thing to note about this action scene is, as big as it is, there is a distinct lack of fatalities. That, combined with the fact that we hear fuck for the first and only time in this movie when they were infiltrating Underworld, makes it feel a lot more obvious that this movie's only got a PG-13 rating. The action can still be entertaining, don't get me wrong, but it's not visceral or dangerous looking so much as slapstick. So if you were ever curious as to how well Mad Max would translate to a Saturday morning cartoon show, Beyond Thunderdome is a pretty good example of that. But they must suddenly stop the train because an 8-year-old is holding them up. Then, seeing the pursuers runs like hell, providing them the information they need to find the secret passageway. This reintroduces Bruce to the movie all of a sudden, and this happens.
You!
Me?
You. It's your lucky day.
It is?
Uh-huh. You got a plane.
I have?
Like I said, they talk to each other like they have no fucking clue who each other are. So, yeah, same actor, but highly unlikely to be the same character. Then again, maybe the gyro captain had relatives, I don't know. Fortunately, it takes very little to convince the man to help Max and the kids escape Bartertown's angry mob as they all load into his plane and dump all the guy's belongings to reduce the weight as much as possible. Not saying there isn't another problem.
Between them and us, there's not enough runway. There will be.
You could also turn the plane around and just go off the cliff. As a matter of fact, if you had done that in the first place instead of stopping and turning around, you probably would have been better off. But, yeah, you will need some speed, but you'll be getting it, so yeah, it'll probably work. Max has a better plan, though. Take the spare car and drive in front of the plane, drastically lowering its maximum speed in order to play chicken with the oncoming cars. This doesn't actually work, as the first one just crashes right into him, but then the plane takes off, meaning they had plenty of runway space, so they could have easily done it that earlier. The point is the kids escape to the skies with Bruce and Master, while Max is left on the ground, where Auntie can do what she pleases to him.
Well, ain't we a pair? Raggedy Man.
Which is evidently nothing. Yeah, he destroyed your town, now you're just gonna be a random fucker in the waste, and there's absolutely no reason anyone would give you any kind of respect at all at this point. But why kill him? I mean, it would make Fury Road a hell of a lot harder to explain. Either way, happy ending! With the help of the airplane, the kids make it all the way to Sydney, which, despite being nuked, is still in pretty good shape. With Master's help, they actually manage to power the city again, and the movie ends on them staying in Sydney, intent on making it their Tomorrow Land themselves. And I think they went back and got the other kids from the Oasis. I think. And they didn't show that, but... I mean, they got their Tomorrow Land. Well, if they didn't go back, that'd be a kind of shitty thing to do. Of course, there was a lot of shit in this movie. Beyond Thunderdome is not really a bad movie, but I think it's pretty easy to see why it's considered to be a bad Mad Max movie. The most obvious thing is the PG-13 rating, neutering the action scenes, and the direction pushing for more comedy, making the whole thing lose a lot of the serious tone of the last two entries. Secondly, though, is the fact that there is a dreadfully small amount of vehicular action this time around. Most of the story revolves around new civilizations after the end of Civilization, and in that regard, it is very interesting. Especially as a fan of science fiction, I like the angles we get to see in this film with Bartertown being a traditional trade hub-style city built on a new energy source, and the Waiting Ones showing people reverting to a more tribal state. I especially like the dialect of the Waiting Ones, as being isolated from most others for pretty much the whole lives for those present, their language naturally evolved along its own course. The plot itself, though, can be a little wonky, with the political espionage of Bartertown leading into the unrelated situation with the Waiting Ones, and then the overlapping of the two, which honestly felt pretty forced, leading into the only vehicle action in this movie, and Max being left alive, because, Auntie is suddenly nice. The original plans of this movie was the Lord of the Flies-esque plot with the Waiting Ones, where a wandering man finds the tribe of children, and someone suggested that man be Mad Max, and the rest of the movie kind of grew out of there, so that explains it, but it doesn't make it flow any better. Overall, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is entertaining and does a good job of building a world for us to lose ourselves in. Problem is, when they start doing head-bonking gags, it's just a big reminder, hey, you're watching a movie now! And once the plots intermingle, things stop making sense in a hurry. But taking everything into account, I still feel that the film comes in at a solid 3 Mel Gibsons punching a woman in the face out of 5. It's not very Mad Max-y, but it's still good. And it's like the only Mad Max film that you could probably sit down with your friends' kids and have a watch and they won't get all uppity. And it's also the first one I've seen where they didn't have random fucking pop up in the middle of a scene. But, well, you take what you can get. Thank you all for watching. I've been Shado. And remember, Godzilla fucked up Sydney a lot worse than World War III did. So, I guess in that sense it makes sense that they still had ice cream.
It's a factory, isn't it? Ask for
I
work.
don't know anything about methane.
You can shovel shit, can't you?